Okay, so in this tutorial we are going to explain how to use the PTX500. The first thing that we need to do when starting the machine is to be sure to have the air pressure at least 6.57 bar are required, and to unpress the emergency button, and finally to have the protection cover closed. Once all these conditions are satisfied, we can press the enable button. The enable button is the button that when you press it, it will have a light. After doing that, we can do the axis homing. The axis homing is done by pressing this button here, axis homing, and with this operation, the axis will go to their zero position. For the x-axis, the zero position is on the left, for the y-axis on the back, and for the z-axis is on the top. Once the homing is completed, this lighting button will become green. After the homing is completed, it's then possible to start working. To do that, we need to go here in programming, and in this page we can make new programs and new macros. So the first thing that we need to do is to create a new macro. For example, let's start with the circle. We input the circle name. So, for example, D10, because we want to have a circle with a 10 millimeter hole. Sorry, 10 millimeter diameter. We input 10 for the diameter and leave the other parameters at 0 because they are not used here. We save. And then go back. We select new program, write the program name, for example, test, write the piece dimension, so L is the length, for example, 500, W is the width, so let's say 80, and age is the height, so let's say 70. Now we press select macro, and in select macro we can find the previously created macro. So if we have already made one or more macros used somewhere else, we can use them, or we can go look for the macro we just made. So in our case, D10. So we touch D10 and confirm it. The macro will now be put in the program, and we can select where to work with it. So the first thing that we need to select is on which phase we want to work. So 0, plus 90 or minus 90. Let's start with 0. Then we select what is the position on the x-axis. The x-axis is starting from the 0 point on the left right of the stop. So that means that if the side stop is in 0 position, that is 0. So starting from that point, you will have to input the number. So for example, if I want to have it more or less in the middle of the x-axis stroke, we will have to write 250. Then we need to write the y-axis position. The y-axis position is taken from the vertical fence that is the stop for the profile. So starting from that point, the y-axis start. So we want it in the middle of our profile, that is 80 millimeter. We will write 40. After that, here where we have Z1, Z2, Z3, we have to write depth. The depth is how much deep I want my work, my hole in this piece. So if I write 0, it will not touch my drilling bit, it will not touch the profile. If I write, for example, 5, the drilling bit will enter 5 millimeter in profile. If I have a profile that with more than one surface or wall, I can write more than one depth, so that the bit will not work, for example, 15 millimeter altogether, but it will work first 5 millimeter, then work the other 15 millimeters, and I can use 5 different depths. After that, I can write the rotation speed of the motor and therefore of the drilling bit, the entering speed of the bit in the piece, and the working speed always of the bit in the piece. Once that is done, I can save the program, and this program will be ready to be used. But if I want or need to add more macro, I go here to new macro, select for example rectangle, write the name, and save. I just need to find macro that I just made, and that is this one. Select it. Okay, and will be automatically added in my program. If I already have a macro, it will take temporarily all the parameters that I input for the previous one. So if I, instead of having this macro at 0, I want to make it at plus 90, I need to change it. So at plus 90, for example, at plus 90, I only have one depth to use, so I will put the Z2 at 0. And I don't want to have this macro, this rectangle, at at 40, but I want to have it always at the middle, so it will be 35 because our profile is 70 millimeter high, and at plus 90 degree the profile will turn. Instead, I will probably leave the work data, so rotation speed, entering speed, and working speed, like the previous one, because I'm using always the same tool. Okay, now let's add another macro at minus 90, and I can use, for example, the keyhole. So let's write name keyhole, for example, 20. All the values are referred to the letters and quote codes that you have in the drawing. So A is this value here. That means it's the distance between the centers of the two circles that are part of this macro. B is the bigger circle between the two of them. So let's make it 17. And C is the smaller circle, semicircle actually. Once everything is there, save it. And go back. So select the new macro. Confirm. And we will have our third macro. Now we want to have it at minus 90. We want to have it in the middle, so we will change this one also to 35. We don't need to have two depths, but we want to have the first one instead of 5, we want to have it at 10. Sorry. Okay. So once ready, we save. Now that we have three workings, three makers, one placed on each face, if we need to make any changes, we can use these arrow buttons to move between the makers. So now the circle is the first one, then the second one is the rectangle, the third one is the keyhole. We need to remember to save the program every time we make a change on the macro. Otherwise, if I press escape or if I move to the next macro without saving it, the changes will not be saved. Now that our program is ready to start, press escape. In the automatic page, that is the page that we are now, we need to input the tool data. So first of all, we need to write the tool diameter, 5 millimeter, for example. The tool length. The tool length is taken from the part that is outside of the spindle nut. So whatever is going out of the spindle, that is the tool aid. Once these data have been written, we press the check and confirm to save the parameters. We are almost ready to start. The last thing that we need to keep in mind is that if we need to use the lubrication, we need to press this button. If we don't need it, we need to unpress it. So when the button is green and there is on, that means that the lubrication is activated. When the button is red and there is off, the lubrication is off. So when we are in this situation, we need to place our profile on the machine, on the table, on the working table. Press the yellow button to close the clamps. When we close the clamps with the yellow button, they will close at low pressure. That means that they will have the strength just to keep the piece in position. And once I press the start button and the program will start running, I will have the clamps will go in high pressure and the program will not be able to move anymore. So once we've done this, close the clamps, close the protection cover, machine is enabled and program is ready. We just need to press the start button, this button here, and the program will start. We suggest to keep the potentiometer that is adjusting the feed. So there is something like a small, very small wheel button that you can rotate. That button is used to add a feed control on the machine movement. That means that if the button is completely turned clockwise, then the machine will work at maximum speed. If the button is completely turned counterclockwise, the machine will work at the minimum speed. That means it's almost still, it will almost not move at all. So when starting a new program, when running a new program that you just made, we suggest to work at, let's say, 10-20% of the maximum speed. So in case of any mistake or error that have been made during the programming, you can stop the machine easily without making any damages. So after selecting everything and the machine is not in emergency, the enable button is on, clamps are closed, you can press the start button and the program will start. If you need to make the program in standby, you press one time the stop button and the program will be in standby. If you press it 2 times, the program will be stopped.